Continuing looking at fractions this week. Our learning intention for today is to simplify fractions. Your success criteria is I can find the highest common factor of two numbers, I can identify equivalent fraction families, and I can multiply and divide to find equivalent fractions. To recap, you need to remember today what are factors. We looked at factors and we started using the language of factors and multiples when we looked at multiplication. So hopefully you'll remember that a factor is a number that we can times by another number to get a product. So in the example here, both 5 and 4 make up a factor pair, and they're both factors of 20. And then we can say that 20 is a multiple of 4 because it's in the 4 times tables, or we could say it's a multiple of 5 because it's in the 5 times tables. Remembering from last week as well, the language of numerator, which is the number on the top, it's talking about the number of parts you have, and the denominator, which is the bottom half of the fraction, the number of parts you have altogether. Remembering also that mixed numbers and improper fractions represent fractions which are greater than 1. Last week we were investigating equivalent fractions and began looking at how to find the simplest form of a fraction. We need to know how to do this so we can compare fractions better, understand the size of fractions, and add or subtract them. Okay. We had a look at some equivalent fraction families last week, and these are good to know off by heart. So you've got your halves, a 1/2, 2/4, 3/6, 4/8, or 5/10, thirds, 1/3, 2/6, 3/9, 4/12, and 5/15. Quarters, 1/4, 2/8, 3/12, 4/16, and 5/20, and fifths, 1/5, 2/10, 3/15, 4/20, and 5/25. So they're all equivalent fractions already. So it would be good if you knew some of them off by heart. Remember that when we are asked to find a fraction simplest form, we want the numerator to be 1 or as close to 1 as possible. So we can use our knowledge of equivalent fraction families, what we just looked at on the previous slide, or we can simplify the fraction. Here's how to simplify the fraction. I'm going to show you a few examples as well. First of all, if you can't use your equivalent fraction family knowledge, you're going to list all the factors of the numerator. Then you're going to list all the factors of the denominator. Then you're going to find the highest common factor for the numerator and the denominator, and I'm going to explain what that means in a minute. Then you need to divide the numerator by the highest common factor, and then divide the denominator, I should say actually, by the highest common factor. So you're dividing both the numerator and the denominator by the highest common factor. Then if you still think that it could be simplified even further, you repeat the whole process again. So when we're talking about highest common factors, we need to understand what common factors are. When we're thinking about common factors, we're thinking about the factors of two different numbers. Like in the example here, we're thinking about the factors of 12, and we can list all of them. And then we're thinking about the factors of 16, a different number, and we can list all of them as well. Common factors are factors that they both have. So you can see that 1 is a common factor, so is 2, because it's in the factor list for both numbers, and so is 4. If I'm talking about the highest common factor, it's the biggest number, the biggest factor that they both share. So in this case, it's 4. If I'm talking about the lowest common factor, then it is obviously the smallest number, which is 1. All right, guys, let's have a look at simplifying some of these fractions. First of all, I'm going to start with 5/20. Now, if you can't use your equivalent fraction family knowledge, then you need to think about the factors. I know that the 5 is a prime number, so the only factors that it has are 1 and 5. 20 has more factors, as 1, 20, 2, 10, 4, and 5. The highest common factor that they share is 5. So I'm going to divide both the numerator and the denominator by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. That's going to be my new numerator. And then 20 divided by 5 is 4. So my new fraction, simplified version, is 1/4, so 1/4. Next, I'm going to look at 6/12. So the factors for 6 are 1, 6, 2, and 3. The factors of 12 are 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, and 4. The highest common factor that they share is 6. So I'm going to divide both of them by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 12 divided by 6 is 2. I should have used my equivalent fraction family knowledge of that one, because you can quite easily see that 6 is half of 12, so I could have done that there. The next one I'm going to look at is 14. 14 has factors of 1, 14, 2, and 7. None others. And 21 has the factors 1, 21, 3, 7, and that's all. The largest factor that they share is 7. So 14 divided by 7 is 2, and 21 divided by 7 is 3, 2/3. Now, I can't simplify that any further, so the numerator is quite close to 1, so that's okay. That's quite a simple fraction that I can understand. Now looking at 4/22, 22nds, 22s, I don't know, 4/22. 4 has the factors 1 and 2. 22 has the factors 1, 22, 2, and 11. The highest common factor that they share is 2. So I'm going to divide the numerator by 2, which 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 22 divided by 2 is 11. So 2/11. Next, I'm going to look at 10/32, or 10/32. The factors are 1 and 10, 2 and 5. That's it. The factors for 32 is going to be a lot of them, I think. 1 and 32, 2 and 16, 4 and 8, 5, no, 6, no, that's all. The highest common factor that they share is 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 32 divided by 2 is 16. 5/16. I can't simplify that any further. They have no other common factors. It starts to become more difficult when you're simplifying if you've start getting odd numbers, or prime numbers actually, I should say. Let's have a look at the final one now. 10/25. The factors are 1, 10, 2, and 5. For 10. For 25, the factors are 1 and 25 and 5. So that's a prime number. The highest common factor they share is 5. So 10 divided by 5 is 2, and 25 divided by 5 is 5. Because I've got a prime number on the bottom there, I'm not going to be able to simplify it any further. So 2/5 is a simplified version of that. Let's have a look at these ones. Here the numerator has been given for you, so you can actually work out what's being done to get that numerator. So basically what we can think is, because we've gotten a smaller one, we know it's been simplified. 20 divided by something is going to give me 10. And I know that what I do to the denominator, I also need to do to the numerator. So I'm going to divide by the same number to figure out what the numerator is. So 20 divided by 2 would give me 10. So I'm going to also divide 10 by 2, and then that will give me 5. So that's my simplified fraction. Could also simplify that a little bit further down into a half. The next one, I need to figure out what has been divided by 12 to get to 6. So, and then I'm going to do the same thing up the top to the numerator. 12 divided by 2 is going to give me 6. So I'm also going to divide 8 divided by 2 to give me 4. 4, 6. I could even simplify that further down into 2/3. The next one I'm going to look at, 15 divided by something equals 5. How did I get that numerator, that denominator? 15 divided by 3 is 5. So what will the numerator up here be? 3 divided by 3 is 1, 1/5. 7/14. 14 divided by something equals 2. I know that 14 divided by 7 equals 2. So I'm also going to divide this numerator by 7 to give me a numerator of 1, 1/2. And finally, 18 divided by something equals 3. I know that 18 divided by 6 equals 3. So I also need to do that to the numerator to find an equivalent fraction. And 6 divided by 6 is 1, 1/3. Having a look at this one, convert these measurements, write the fraction in its simplest form. So 500 meters, what we need to know, we're converting it into kilometers. You need to know that there is 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So we can write 500 meters as a kilometer measurement simply by doing this. 500 divided by 1,000. Because we're talking about 500 meters out of a possible 1,000, because there are 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. Or we can simplify that further down into 50 over 100. Or we could simplify it further down into 5 over 10. Or we could simplify it down into half a kilometer. The next one we're going to look at is 10 centimeters in a meter. We know that there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. So we can first of all write our fraction as this, 10, because we're talking about 10 possible centimeters, 10 centimeters out of a possible 100. We can simplify that further down into 1 over 10. And we can't simplify that any further. Next, we're going to look at 90 milliliters out of, I think that should say liters. Yeah. We know that there is 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. So that's 90 over 1,000. So we're talking about 90 milliliters out of a possible 1,000 to make up 1 liter. We can simplify that further down into 9 over 100 by dividing both of those by 10. And we can't simplify that any further, so it's 9/100ths of a litre. Lastly, let's have a look at these ones. See if you can pause the video and have a go at doing them on your own first. I'm going to go through them quite quickly because I think we've done these ones quite to death now. That's the same as a half. I can divide both of those by 3 and get 1/5. I can see both of these numbers are in the 3 times table, so I'm going to hazard a guess at saying that I need to divide them by 3. I would say 6 times tables for both of those. They're both in the 6 times table, so yeah, 4/5, that's a pretty low fraction. 3 times tables, 6 over 5, no, divided by 3, 6 over 10. I could half that again, so make it 3 over 5. Sometimes you can just divide the numerator. That's a pretty good guess, being able to get you down to 1, as long as the denominator is a factor of the numerator is a factor of the denominator. I think I said that right. Divide by these ones by 3. Halving that one, I can go again, down to 1/3. I'm going to divide both of these by 5, 1/4. Divide these ones by 4, 1/6. Divide by 6, 1/2, and this one's going to be 1/3. Alright guys, our learning intention today has been to simplify fractions. Oops. If you're filling up for the challenge, can you simplify this fraction 64 over 120? And your maths task for today